Welcome to Overwatch, and welcome to a slightly rambly video, but this has sort of caught my attention, and it sort of demonstrated to me something that's very wrong with a lot of the Overwatch community in regards to how skill rating works, and how skill rating, what it's meant to do, what it's meant to be, what it's meant to represent. In the background you can see me leveling my Widowmaker Smurf. I'm sure you guys will find it plenty entertaining as I miss shots that I really shouldn't, but hey, I'll try and make it entertaining in the background at the same time. Right, so for those of you who don't know the background, Scott Mercer, sort of one of the big designers for Overwatch, did a big post about how the skill rating system works and also how it pulls information out of the system, and it basically compares you to other people who play similarly to you. So let's say, for example, you play as Ana, like I do in a lot of my high-level competitive games. I'm almost an Ana main, and you play a shitload of Ana, right? Well, what ends up happening is that when you play a match, it compares you not to the other people in your game necessarily. Did you get gold on healing? Did you get silver on healing? That kind of thing. Silver damage, gold damage, whatever. It doesn't really take any interest in that. What it takes interest in is how did you do compared to every other Ana that they have data for, and I'm assuming that it might also take stuff like maps into account. It might take lots and lots and lots of information into account, like, you know, if you played on Lijiang Tower, it's only fair to compare you to other Anas on Lijiang Tower, for example. How much they do, how much they narrow it down, I have no idea. No one does. It's a very important thing to say that no one has any real idea how much this bears into anything, and they've gone on record before and by stating quite simply that your performance in game, like the skill measurement system, is only a small part of the overall how it works in terms of how you're getting points lost and gained. The biggest things determining it, of course, are whether you win or not, because that determines whether it's a positive modifier or a negative modifier, and also just like the comparative ratings between the two teams. Now what this led to is people going, well, if you're playing Sombra, like Sombra is the easy example because there's not that many Sombras that play in Grandmaster, for example, and you're playing at a really high level, well, your average stats are going to be probably a lot higher than the second Sombra, the third Sombra, the fourth Sombra, and even like the 500th Sombra, compared to stuff like, you know, the Ana population, where there's going to be a shitload of Anas. So if you're comparing Grandmaster level Anas, well, there's a bigger pool to compare from than there is Sombras, Torbjorns, even some Metras, especially on offensive and stuff like that. And so this has led to people going, well, if that's the case, this might explain why these sort of Torbjorn mains and Sombra mains exist, where we've seen in the past, and people have sort of demonstrated this, that if you play these very niche heroes that don't really get picked much to the highest levels, and you just keep on playing them, you can have a sub 50% win rate, so you lose more than you win, but because it's comparing your averages to everyone else, well, your averages are still so much higher that you're still gaining a lot more SR than you're losing, so you can have the sub 50% win rate while still be climbing. You'll get 30 points a game, you'll lose 20, for example. Now, this has sparked a big discussion, right, of people going, maybe the conclusion from this, maybe the absolute conclusion from this is if you want to get to a high rank, you should main Torbjorn. 4. And it's sort of exploded in my brain of like, what the fuck? And it's not because, you know, they're necessarily even wrong. You could, in theory, if you just went today, became a top 500 you know, out of all the Torbjorn players, you became in the top 50 of those Torbjorn players, you could probably get to a higher rank than you could if you went and did the same on Mercy. But you would still have to be playing at a very high level, and you would still have to be playing to a point where you are investing a lot of time and energy and effort into developing a better skill set to actually climb to that point. And this is where I sort of become different, I guess, from where most people are, because most people think about the SR system and they think that it is a reflection on their skill level. Here's the spoiler: there is no rating system on the planet that will accurately represent your skill level. None, not one. No one has developed a system that intricate, that detailed, that can reliably tell you you are Widowmaker number 427 in the world. No one has developed that system. There are too many variables in Overwatch, there's too much going on, it's way too hard. So people, first and foremost, take skill rating, and the name is kind of misleading in that regard. Skill rating, it's a rating for your skill level. No, it really kind of isn't. What it is more accurately, a matchmaking rating. It's a rating used to determine matchmaking, and that's all it is. That's all it's being used for. It's used to try and put you in a game that is as evenly balanced as possible. Sometimes it feels like it fails massively. I assure you it could be probably a lot worse. It might be better in some ways as well. I don't know. I'm not a fucking engineer that works on that stuff. But what I am is very invested in how people play and how people think about their approach to playing, and I've always pushed forward the simple motto: improvement happens first, and then skill rating increase happens after. People seem to have this misleading idea that somehow, oh, I got to Grandmaster, therefore I am better. No, you are better, therefore you got to Grandmaster. It's not the other way around. And if you are investing a shitload of time in playing Torbjorn, well, sure, you'll get better at Torbjorn, you might be great at Torbjorn, and you might be a part of literally the top 1, 2, 3% of those Torbjorn players, and if so, you probably do deserve to be in at least Master, maybe even Grandmaster. You might be dragging your team down, your team might be tilting off the face of the planet, but you're still playing at a level where you probably should be there. And this is the thing to me, this is the thing that really catches me off. Are these people cheating the system? Are they cheating? Is the big complaint, you know. Do they deserve to be this high? Well, if you are in the top 10 Sombras in the world, where else should you be, really, than in Grandmaster? And that sounds weird to say, but the amount of times I've seen them lose, and people like this lose just because their team tilts, just because someone insta-locks Sombra and someone else goes, oh, well, fuck this then, I'm just going to jump off a cliff and play Junkrat. Like, they probably should be around where they are. They shouldn't be too far off. And if they played a normal hero, if they spent all that time and effort and energy learning Soldier 76, they'll probably still be about in the same place. And that, to me, is the real hook, line, and sinker. It's this feeling of, I don't know, entitlement to a high rank that some people have. It's this feeling of, well, these guys who are just maining Sombra are cheating the system and gimmicking out more SR than perhaps they should deserve. And my response is, they're probably not cheating out as much as you think. It's probably a lower volume than you would imagine. If they spent, again, all that time and energy playing Soldier, they'd probably still do pretty well, because you've still got to be pretty fucking good to actually get high damage values and high integers out of something like a Sombra. You've still got to be pretty good to get high damage out of a Torbjorn. Now, that isn't to say that, you know, we haven't seen it in the beta. I mean, this existed for a long time, where people were just playing Torbjorn. I think this is more Season 1. And you'd see these Torbjorn players that would literally just spam turrets and spam, like, damage into barriers and stuff like that, and that's all they would do. They would try and inflate their stats as high as possible, and therefore they would minimize SR losses but maximize SR gains whenever someone carried them to a win. The funny thing is, though, is that if you're shitting out a ton of damage and you're putting it into enemy barriers, you're actually not necessarily doing a terrible thing. Overwatch is one of those games where if you took the statistics, and I'm reasonably confident in this after talking to a developer or two, the team that does the most damage usually wins in Overwatch. So if you are just finding ways to shit out tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of damage, you're actually not necessarily doing too bad. Now, sure, there's better finesse to that damage, but on a character like Torbjorn, nailing barriers is not necessarily a bad thing. Your turret's gonna nail the flankers anyway, so hey, it actually kind of works out. But it's just insane to me that the conclusion from these videos is, oh, well, we should main Torbjorn, or that we should main Sombra. That's how you get high enough in SR. First and foremost, if everyone goes and mains Torbjorn and Sombra, the tactic stops working and the problem fixes itself. Huzzah, isn't that funny? And thing number two is this. The single best way to get higher in rank is to just get better. It's that simple. Again, the biggest influencer on whether or not you gain or lose SR overall is whether or not you win or lose. That's the biggest. It's not the only. That's why you can still gain on sub 50% or you can still lose on plus 50% win rates, but it's the biggest. And so if you're winning more games than you are losing, on average you will generally start climbing. If you still have a variance of like 47% or 53%, then sure, maybe you will end up in about the same place you left off. But you will still maybe climb very slowly, you might sink very lowly depending on where the game thinks you rate compared to the global populace of players for that hero. So if you play like a 3.7k Mercy, you will end up with all the other 3.7k Mercies. And that's just how the game's rating you. It's taking all those heroes and putting them side by side and saying, huh, you are about here in terms of Mercy players overall. Therefore, we will try and put you about here. And so this video is more intended to be sort of a rant, but also maybe to try and, I don't know, broaden a few perspectives, to put the main takeaway from these sorts of moments where you learn about how there might be a trick to inflating your SR somehow, there might be a trick, a gimmick to getting a couple more points per win or loss, which is that if you took all the time and energy that people take in developing these, if you're sat there honestly thinking, I should go and main Torbjorn now, if you take all the time and energy that you would have to put into maining Torbjorn, learning how to be good at Torbjorn, learning how to get into the top 10% of Torbjorn players, learning how to get into the top 1% of Torbjorn players, learning all of that shite, and you put it into learning Soldier, if you put it into learning Genji, if you put it into learning Ana, if you put it into learning more varied, more variable heroes, and heroes that you actually want to play, you will A, probably end up in a very similar place in rank, and B, have more fun doing it. And remember, that's kind of the point, right? As someone who has been in Grandmaster, has seen the lofty heights, it's not any better up there than it is down below, guys. It really isn't. You still get teammates who are complete arsewipes. You still get teams that refuse to work together. The reasons might be different, but the games you get that are abysmal are still abysmal, and the games that you get are great are still great. At the end of the day, it's about having fun. And if you really want to climb, try and find ways that are fun doing it. Like opening up a Smurf to try and cram Widowmaker into ranked and see how well you do with it. That works for me, I guess. I don't know, guys. Just give me your thoughts on this entire thing. Maybe you think it's horribly unjust that you're compared to your peers in a global ranking system. Maybe it's not. Maybe you think the system can't accurately compare you. The thing is, the big thing with that, and the big takeaway with that is we don't know how weighted these statistics spreads are. And without that information, we will never know. And I don't think Blizzard are going to give it away. So yeah, good luck. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching to the end. I'm going to try and get back into making some more regular video content. I've said that about a billion times, but hey, who knows? This time, maybe. Toodles.